Looking for an agenda?
Sorry, they're all gone. You have to share.
Oh my gosh. No.
No, she's good.
Of course, it keeps us alive.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yes.
Oh. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming tonight. We're going to start the meeting with a public hearing on an application for a special exception by the WH Equity Group LLC. I need a motion to open the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, who's here from the applicant?
Good evening. On behalf of the applicant, James Hill, 323 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach, New York.
For the applicant, Jim Hume, 323 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach, New York. With me tonight are Ryan Jansen and Mike Taylor, who are principals in the
Brian Grogan, the engineering firm that has been working with us on this project. So we're here tonight to discuss the special exception permit that we need in order to move forward on this project. And I thought it would be good to give a little bit of an overview and just a little background before we got to the actual requirements of the special exception permit itself. And those of you that, so this is the plan, and I'm going to call Brian to come step you through some of the technical details of what's shown on there. I believe you all have took the copies of this as part of our submission.
If not,
Brian Grogan with the TW Grosser Consulting with the civil engineers for the project. In front of us today, or from the board today, is a 45-unit housing complex. We are, it is a total of 38 market rate units and 7 affordable units. That equates to our maximum density under the village code. This was reduced from our original application, I'll say originally years ago. I know it's before the planning board as a piece of the old Riverhead. There's a property that butts over Riverhead Road that is zoned differently, so that was then taken back out of that calculation. So it started yield before we got to you. Also under request of the planning board, there was an earlier iteration where there was a access point off of Old Riverhead Road into the development. The planning board recommended that be removed as it appeared in their opinion that it would create a cut-through condition that people may try to.
I'm not sure that microphone's working.
You could also move up. There's a lot more room up here, everybody.
No, it was.
Brian, I'm not sure you brought it.
So as I was saying, we removed the old Riverhead Road entrance as the planning board felt that a cut-through condition might exist of people trying to bypass the light coming through there. So that was a recommendation of theirs to remove that from the overall project. We have we have two entrances then on the property. One off of Montauk Highway, which is ingress egress. We also have another one off of Depot Road. For Depot Road and Montauk Highway, there are some, I'll say, off-site improvements that we are proposing to include in the development, which includes the widening of Depot Road, so that we, in essence, create 3 lanes, 1 northbound lane, 2 southbound lanes, to provide a separate left-hand turn lane and a right turn straight lane. So that widening goes, I'll say, towards our property within the right-of-way, so it scooted everything towards us. Didn't impact our property itself, but it was all within the right-of-way, and again, that's proposed by us to mitigate some potential traffic concerns regarding the train station, especially on peak weekends in the summer, and queuing that occurs on Depot Road. Also on Montauk Highway, there is a right-hand turn lane from Montauk Highway onto Depot now being proposed. So now an actual, move over and we're having a right-hand turn lane. So those are some of the off-site improvements that we've made. That's part of this. Again, it's a 45-unit community, all 2-bedroom units. Units vary in sizes. There's a sewage treatment plant proposed that's been reviewed by Suffolk County Health Department as well as Suffolk County DPW. We've conducted traffic studies as part of the additional SECRA requested or work done by the planning board. We've also done a number of consistency analysis, and those were reviewed by, I believe, Kyle Collins before he left, as well as the New Village planner, Britton. And again, that's kind of what led us to getting I'll say the preliminary or conditional site plan approval that got us to you today. So that's the basic nutshell of what we have here. Other than that, I think we've gone through a lot of the engineering of the site plan with Ron and Brad, and I believe we've pretty much substantially accommodated all of the known, site plan conditions that we need to on that aspect of it.
Right. One question. You mentioned the property on the east side with different zoning. Is it a separate property, or is from the
It's a separate. It's this small piece up here. I think it's in total. I think it's like a 1/4 acre ish.
north of the old gas station?
Yes. Yeah, it was a separate tax map number,
Separate tax map.
and 14 years ago ish, it was actually requested by the planning board to obtain it for purposes of having an access,
Got
which was then obtained and incorporated into the plan, and now it was being said, remove that from that.
And so you took that out of the yield. What's planned for it? Just to leave it?
Yeah, I mean, we were going to basically use it as on-site, maybe some additional recreation area, something along those lines.
Okay. Thanks.
So the property in question actually consists of 4 separate tax lots, I believe, all of which are owned by the same entity. And as was pointed out, this one a little bit on the end, I think, is zoned B1. The rest of the property is zoned HD. And so when that was discovered, interestingly enough, it was not discovered in 2007 when the parent, as I will call it, of this application was originally made. That was originally a 48-unit project that came close to getting approved, but was obviously never approved by the planning board or by this board. And then we fast forwarded to now, and as indicated, the planning board then, not the current planning board, but the planning board then had asked that applicant to acquire that piece of property to provide an access that this planning board then decided wasn't necessarily appropriate for the property. So,
Jim, when you say that it didn't go past planning board or get to our board, was that for what reason? They stopped the application?
They stopped prosecuting it, yeah. It wasn't anything that the village did. I think they were looking for financing, and they couldn't put the financing together.
So it was their decision?
Yeah, that was clearly.
Nothing was denied?
No. In fact, I think In 2008, when that application was made, I believe it was the first application under the amended law, which still exists today, which we're applying under as well. And so it was well reviewed and studied and looked at and modified and changed, and it did, in the planning board, did get right up to the very end. The only thing that the planning board, other than a special permit, was looking for was approval from the health department, and that was never forthcoming. And then I'm speculating that they couldn't get the financing, but for whatever reason they stopped, and that project was never fully approved or permitted. So when we came to begin this process back in December of last year, we started with that 48-unit plan that they had proposed, and in a lot of ways this plan is still that plan. And as Brian indicated, because of the discovery about the different zoning for that little bit of property, we lost a little bit of maximum yield. So that's when the project was reduced down to 45 proposed units with the 7 affordables as part of the project. So we've already been through substantial preliminary review, I guess I would call it, with the planning board, which was necessary in order for us to get the preliminary approval that the planning board did in fact grant to get us entree to this board here so that we could discuss the special exception permit. We went through an extensive SEQRA process there, which was preceded by some significant public sessions and public input. The bulk of the majority of the comment during that period of time had to do with the traffic, which is understandable. And then ultimately the SEQRA was issued relative to this by the planning board, and their condition was the removal of the Riverhead Road entrance. So that's why that fell out of the project. The village planner and the village engineer reviewed the project pretty extensively and had significant comments as well, which led us to this. An important point I want to make sure that everybody understands about the traffic, because obviously the number of units to it, which is what's at issue here, does drive a lot of things, but most important, well, not most importantly, but importantly to many people, is the traffic. And as Brian indicated, part of this plan includes modifications to Depot Road as well as to Montauk Highway. And our traffic studies, which were, I believe, accepted by your village engineer, suggested that these plan changes not only allowed the village roads to absorb whatever traffic we would generate, but would actually create an improved situation for the high traffic area peaks, especially when people are coming down Depot Road, adding a third turning lane, adding a turning lane off of Montauk Highway. We get that there's a lot of traffic at certain times here, but the correct question here is not what will our project do about all that other traffic. We can't do anything about all that other traffic. The question as it pertains to traffic here is how will the traffic that we generate affect the already existing condition. And I think the conclusion that was reached by our traffic studiers and, as I said, accepted by the village engineer was that our proposed improvements actually help the situation, that this absorbs all of our traffic and actually should, it's not going to make it go away. I mean, I don't know what will make it go away completely, but we're certainly not going to make it any worse, and we might make it a little bit better with the site improvements that we're proposing. So one of the things I think that we need to talk about that is important, I think, is the affordability element here. You know, we recognize that for each affordable unit, we get another market unit, and that's the carrot, I guess, that was put in the code in order to encourage that kind of thing. But the affordable component needs to work both ways. It needs to work for for people who can then maybe afford it, although I'm not sure the math really works that well. And it has to work economically for us to build those units, because there's certainly a cost associated with the construction of those units, and the cost of those units, the construction cost of those units gets greater the larger those units are. So there becomes a bigger delta between how much the developer will be subsidizing those units as the units get bigger and bigger. So looking at all that, and the price that will be paid for those units doesn't get bigger because the unit gets bigger. I spent a fair bit of time this afternoon trying to parse the affordable unit section of our village code. And the purchase price to be paid is 300% of an eligible family's income. The eligible people, the families that are deemed eligible for this purchase have to have at least 80% of the median gross household income for households of the same size in Nassau and Suffolk County. I didn't have a chance to look up what that number is, but there's a number out there somewhere, and anybody who meets that 80% threshold can purchase for 300% of whatever that threshold is. So, but to look at this economically, you have to look at the 80% level. So that's it may be that all 7 units go to the people who are at the low end of the income. And whatever that number is, it's certainly below market, well below market. But again, the balance that my clients are trying to reach here is providing these units, subsidizing the cost of building these units while still having an overall profitable venture, although the interest rates are making that even more interesting than it was, say, even a year ago. So taking all that into consideration, we developed a plan that does, in fact, have the 7 affordable units, and they range between 926 and 1,920 square feet. All of the affordables, like all of the other units, are 2 bedrooms. But they are a bit smaller than what we're proposing for the market rate units for the economic reasons that I just described. From a zoning perspective, this project meets all of the other zoning requirements: the lot coverage, the number of parking spots, the setbacks, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, in a couple of instances, we are under what is permitted. For example, the overall impermeable lot coverage on the property is 60% under the code, I believe, and this project is closer to 50%, I believe. So there's actually an extra 10% that is not getting covered and is available for additional landscaping if ultimately the planning board believes that it's appropriate, and or perhaps even additional parking on the site. Although, as I pointed out, this plan has, I think, 99 spots. Whatever the code, it meets the code. Some of it is in garages, some of it's in open parking, but the plan overall meets that requirement. So with that as background, we're here tonight to talk about the special permit that we need from you all in order to go back to the planning board and have all of the real significant planning of the project itself to take place. And so, you know, some people, are, including myself in the past, have always been puzzled about what a special permitted use is. Is it a permitted use? Is it not a permitted use? And so it's kind of a hybrid, but the fact that something is indicated as requiring a special permit is, I think, is a general rule believed to be in harmony with the general zoning plan. So I'm not talking about the specific numbers, but I'm just talking about in general, it would be hard to have this special permit activity and for this board to find that multifamily was not appropriate at all for this particular part of the world. So the concept is that it's going to be developed in harmony with that general zoning plan that has been put in place. And the authority for this comes out of the zoning code 197-77, which puts this squarely in front of you, although you're certainly in a position to take advice from anybody, but those other entities are not determinative. It's you guys to get to review this on your own and come to your own conclusion as to whether the density that we're proposing is appropriate or not. And so if we drill down into the specific requirements under 197-79, the first one is that the special exception use will not prevent the orderly and reasonable use of the adjacent properties for the reasons I indicated before, and the reason why we have proposed these off-site improvements is so that our project will not adversely affect the operation and use of other properties, even at the density that we're proposing, which does provide the 7 affordables. We believe that our off-site improvements will absorb any traffic that this site may generate, and so there will certainly not be a negative impact, and there might be a slight positive impact as a result of those improvements. The second one is kind of interesting. It has to do with it won't prevent the orderly and reasonable use legally established uses in the district. Well, interestingly enough, this property is the entire district at this location. The HT, except I think for maybe one house on the northwest corner, the boundaries of the HD are the boundaries of our property. So I think we have proposed a plan that is orderly and reasonable within the district. But it goes on to talk about the adjacent districts as well. We're on Montauk Highway, a major thoroughfare through the village. I think that this project will actually be a benefit to the businesses and other uses up and down Montauk Highway. So I don't think we run afoul of that. The third general area is the safety, health, welfare, comfort, and convenience, or the order of the village, will not be adversely affected. This project, in a lot of ways, is very much self-contained. All the parking that we need is on the site. The roads that our owners, renters might need, is on the site. It has a self-contained, state-of-the-art septic system contained on the site. So very little impact beyond. I think we did get some comments from fire, police, and others, and I don't think any of that was kind of neutral, I guess, is the way I would describe that. So I don't think we run afoul of that. And then the last is it will preserve and protect the environment. Well, with the septic system that we're proposing, I think the environment is protected from the uses that are permitted on this property. So it won't be an extraordinary in any way. And going on to 197-80, some other considerations. The character of the existing and probable development of uses in the district. Well, again, we are the district, but we're directly adjacent to another multifamily project that has just about the same density as what we're proposing, if not, in fact, the same density, if I recall. So I don't think additional multifamily at this location is out of the ordinary, especially since it's one of the permitted special exception uses in the area. Next is the conservation of property values. These are going to be well-built, high-end units. I think that they will not have a negative impact on the surrounding property value, and I think could have a very positive effect on the property values in the area. It's going to be very nicely landscaped to the extent that anybody's concerned about seeing whatever architecture ultimately ends up being put on the property here. We believe that it will be pleasing to the eye, but there'll be a lot of landscaping that will hide it from those that really don't want to see what's behind there. But it's, the project is spread out over, as required by the design standards. It's spread out over a number of buildings. There are 17 separate buildings here, and then also a community building and some other features as well. The next factor is the availability of adequate and proper public or private facilities for the treatment and removal of sewage. Well, as I indicated, one of the upgrades from the 2008 project is a much better health department approved sewage treatment plant that is self-contained on the property and shouldn't have any impact outside the property. So that will certainly be an improvement. Next is the availability of utilities. Building on a major thoroughfare, as we are, there's plenty of electric and water and whatever else we might need. Hazard to life, limb, or property because of fire, flood, erosion, or panic? I don't think so. Hopefully nobody will panic over this project, but one never knows. Will it cause an overcrowding on the land or undue concentration of population? What we're proposing is within the maximum density limits for this property, and what we're proposing also doesn't cover as much of the property as the zoning code actually would allow us to cover. So there's, I think we have an extensive landscaping plan that will be put in place, which I'm sure will be tweaked when we get back to the planning board. But I don't think we're overbuilding on this property for the limits that have been placed on this property by the village code. Whether it will overwhelm enjoyment of the public of parking or other recreational facilities. Again, everybody who's on this site is parking on this site. They're not parking anywhere else. In fact, I don't think they can park anywhere else. So you certainly can't park on Montauk Highway. I'm sure there's no parking on Depot Road or Riverhead Road as well. And as part of this project, we will be proposing recreational facilities on site. We're going to have to balance that against the park fee that may also be due as a result of this. And so to the extent that we can't provide enough amenities on the property to avoid the park fee first blush could be substantial and would certainly offset any off-site impacts that this project may propose. And the last consideration is whether the will be in harmony with the ecology of the surrounding area and promote the conservation of same. Again, we're covering only about a little over 50% of this very, very large 8-acre site, and there's going to be significant and substantial landscaping as part of this project. So in the context of what is permitted to do on this on this property, I think that it's definitely in harmony with those kind of factors. So that's kind of an overview of everything, and we're here to try to answer whatever questions, what other questions you might have concerning the project.
Thank you, Jim. Could you tell us again about the size of the units? I didn't get that.
Yes, the affordable units range from 926 square feet up to 1,920 square feet. And the market units range from 1852 to 2635.
Are there basements?
There are basements, but there will be ultimately required a covenant that they cannot be used by anything other than basements. So the village code doesn't allow that. I think because of the conversion of basements in other multifamily projects in the village that didn't have that restriction.
Are the affordable units scattered throughout the project, or are they clustered in one particular?
I think they're spread out over 3 different buildings. I think there's four buildings. over 4 buildings, so,
Physically integrated into.
yes. Yep.
I assume that has to do with the size. So you're gonna that building is gonna. Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Jim before we move up to the topic?
Something I saw that it was just,
Oh,
You
okay.
can open it.
I can't remember where I saw it now.
You know, the big plans are so unwieldy, but I reduced them down and I can't read what they say, so. So,
Do you have something on your thumb drive that would show the overall, landscape layout?
yes, that would be slide 1, page 2. Yeah, right there. I don't know if you can, Brian, you want to talk about this a little?
It's a little hard to read all the exact species, but you can see basically the darker circles are, all of the proposed landscaping around the, in essence, the edges of the property. And then we have additional landscaping along the frontage, as well as entry drives, the back roads here by the STP, additional behind the units that are abutting patio gardens, or patio villas. There's existing fence along that property line. And then I think there's existing, larger trees up around that same area. So again, our supplemental plantings are shown on this, in accordance with kind of the village code. And again, this has been reviewed through planning board. Haven't really got a whole lot of comments on the actual landscape plan itself.
Where are the facilities? Is there a?
So there's the community buildings here, the swimming pool is here. These are all the individual units. Banks of 2 buildings up on this side. These are, 4-unit buildings largely. Sewage treatment plant is in this corner.
Any courts?
Not right at the moment, but again, we're investigating the reuse of this area here as well as up further for any other recreational activities. Originally, that access road kind of snuck through back in here.
Where's sewage treatment for the development to the north?
I don't believe there is a actual sewage treatment plant. I think that
Private septic?
I believe so. It may have been an old D-Night system. It predated requirements for STP.
Got it.
Any other questions?
Jim, you had said that the basements, in your proposal, the basements were not gonna be used for anything?
Are they going to be used as basements,
Basements.
as required by the village code now? But my expectation is that the planning board, if they ultimately approve this project, will require us to covenant that as well.
Okay, because that's what I was looking at the plans. I noticed buildings 7 through 11 and 15 have the egress windows in the basement.
Oh, okay.
That's a code requirement to have egress windows, and Brad could always elaborate more on that, but it's a code requirement to have egress windows, even though there's no living space in the
Okay.
basement.
What? Yeah, so because they're anticipating that you're gonna do it anyway.
Yes. And the village is working hard. The village is working hard by ordinance as well as covenant to prevent that from happening, so,
But, yeah, the covenants.
yes. But we have no plans to develop them as living space.
As you know, I'm not a fan of them.
Yeah, I understand.
And they're all 2 bedrooms, you said?
Everything, yeah, all the units are 2 bedrooms throughout.
That's 900 square foot affordable for 2 bedrooms, they're gonna be really small bedrooms.
I remember the apartment I lived in New York City was smaller than any of these units, and we had 3 bedrooms, and I had 3 kids.
Anybody else have any questions right now for Jim? Of course, you know, I'm sure
No,
there'll
right
be
now.
more questions later, but thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Carl. All right, well, since this is a public hearing, if there's anybody from the public who'd like to give comments to the board, please come up to the podium, state your name, and we will listen to everything you have to say.
Hi, my name's Terry McEntee, and I live in Patio Villas. I grew up out here. I've been in Patio Villas for 20 years. May I ask that you put up that picture again that shows the landscaping? Everyone's spoken to you about all the problems, or what they think will be problems with this development. I'm concerned about the aesthetics of this. I know you say that there's going to be landscaping, and I believe you, but there's absolutely no comparison to what you can do here and what Patio Villas looks like. Patio Villas is a beautiful place. I'm sure you've all been in there. I'm all for beautiful development in this town. What's going in Depot Road is fabulous, but this is so huge, and it's right on Montauk Highway. As you said, it's 17 separate buildings. People driving into this town are going to think it looks like Queens. I mean, where else in West Hampton Beach is anything else being built? I just find it really upsetting that you would put it someplace where it's not smacking you right in the face. But this is just unbelievable, and I don't think there's anything in this town that's like this, and I don't think it should be right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
The only thing I would remind the board about that is that the density of this project is no greater than the density of the project to the north. So if this is huge and an eyesore, then that is as well.
It's a Patio Villas is 6 per acre as well?
Yeah,
This-
yes,
And 18 buildings.
and 18 buildings, yeah. So it's not out of character with the direct neighbor to the north, at least.
What do you have? I can't see, on that landscaping, what's the size of the trees, the caliper, the trees along Montauk Highway?
It looks like it's 2.5 to 3 inch caliber.
Hmm.
I know I can look this up later when I look it over, but is it a combination of deciduous and evergreen?
Yeah, it's a mix of different plants.
Okay.
And, remember also that whatever results here, we have to go back to the planning board, and one of the many things that the planning board will look at with even more detail is these kind of issues. So, and I'm sure my clients are amenable to providing adequate landscaping, but I think the architecture is going to be nice here. So, I mean, some people might actually like to see the buildings, kind of the townhouse kind of thing. So,
You don't have a rendering, but
we do have slide number 2 is showing some of them, I think. I think somebody had a hard copy of that over here also.
We all do.
Yeah.
but not,
Oh, no, we
site.
don't. No,
Okay.
no, we don't have a bird's eye rendering of the site, no.
You want to pass this around?
Yeah, we can, Liz, if you could just
Oh, there we go.
page through, there's different views of different buildings, peaked roofs, shingles, a variety of architecture. I think there was some discussion early on in the planning board about the color palette, but I don't think that has actually been determined, but it certainly won't be offensive to anybody. Obviously, we want to sell these units when we're finished, so, and we know where we are, these were developed with the 48 unit project, so they may change a little bit just because there's less units. But this will give you a general sense of the varying architecture that is proposed. Sure.
Hello, I'm Ann Smalley. I live in Patio Villas community. I've lived there in number 27 Brittany Lane since 2005. I've been here full-time since March of 2020, and I was a partial year resident. Before that, going back to 1950, I grew up over on Onek Road, and then bought my patio villa in 2005. I know I met with you, Mayor Moore, and Deputy Mayor Urban back on May 2nd, which was 6 months and a day ago. And I was speaking with you then about my concerns about the overdevelopment of the area. Since then, and prior to that meeting we had, I've been to every planning board meeting since January 27th, except for one. Many things were brought up at the public hearings that the planning board held in June. There were many emails sent from community members, and I'm not sure if the Board of Trustees was privy to any of that. I have copies of things that I'm happy to drop off at your offices tomorrow when I make extra copies for myself. But 21 community members from Patio Villas attended the public hearings, and 16 Patio Villas residents sent in emails. 4 residents of the greater West Hampton Beach community sent in emails, along with the Board of the Fire Commissioners. I have many issues with this. One of my issues is the overdevelopment in this small area between Depot Road and Quayog, south of the train tracks, north of Montauk Highway. There is a proposal, including Rogers Avenue, which I think the numbers are in flux, the affordable housing in Quayog, patio gardens, Country Point large houses, and 16 possible senior housing units that are before the planning board right now on Riverhead Road. When you add it all up, it's 242 new residential units in that small area. I know that Jim was speaking quite a bit about the traffic, but it seemed to be he was talking about just within the patio gardens development as far as and with the Depot Road, Montauk Highway intersection. I'm concerned not only about that area, but about the greater village community. The traffic now on Montauk Highway is lined up in both directions in the morning and the afternoon, with people getting to the school, which is adjoining this area, and getting to the east end, all the construction, trade parade vehicles. And there's much increased commercial development in place and planned. The Amazon facility, the Gabreski Hampton Business District, the expected Citarella that's coming in April, from what I've been told, at the location that the Clada restaurant has been in, a new restaurant that's being proposed where Dora's had been, the new 7-Eleven just south of the train tracks on the west side of Riverhead Road that will have 8 gas pumps. I'm sure that that will be a draw for people going through this area. There was a traffic study done, and a gentleman from the traffic study did a very nice presentation on June 9th at the public hearing, which I and a number of Patio Villa residents attended. It was a great traffic study. He had it done May 27th of 2021 through June 2nd of 2021 over Memorial Day weekend period, which they claimed was a peak holiday weekend period, so that would reflect what the traffic would be like. Well, I said at that meeting, and I still say, that the traffic study was invalid. The pandemic was very much limiting train and jitney travel out to the Hamptons. In addition to that, the weather over that Memorial Day weekend was terrible. My own kids wouldn't even come, though I promised them free meals. It was not a peak weekend. I went onto the Gabreski Airport Almanac, and the mean temperature at Gabreski that weekend, for the 3 days was 48 degrees to 58 degrees. Not really conducive to coming out for Memorial Day weekend. Also, there was 3.39 total inches of rain that weekend, which, if you compared it to what a snow depth would be, 44 inches of snow. I don't think anyone would want to come out for that. 2021, Memorial Day 2021. They added it on to a Country Point traffic study and amended it based on these new dates and tried to pass it off as a very valid peak holiday weekend traffic study, which it wasn't. So I went out and I did a little count on my own. One of my neighbors actually gave me one of those clickers that they hand out that they have at Rogers Beach as a joke. He's sitting there in the audience laughing. June 24th, Friday, from 5:30 to 6 p.m., when the cannonball comes in, there were 228 north-south trips on Depot Road in a 30-minute period from 5:30 to 6 p.m. On July 1st, Friday of 4th of July weekend, the car count on Depot Road was 288 north-south trips in that 30-minute period when the cannonball and the jitney go up and down at the same time. Now, that causes traffic congestion from the traffic light at Montauk Highway and Depot Road all the way back to the train station for an extended period of time. People from Patio Villas have learned to go north on Depot Road, cut through Station Road, go past the cemetery, and out that way. This new project will be closer to Montauk Highway and Depot Road. I can't imagine cars there trying to come in and out of their access point with cars taking a sharp right at Montauk Highway onto Depot Road, maybe 30 yards from where Patio Gardens, or whatever they end up calling it, will be. The cars are going to be T-boning each other there. So another concern I have is the volunteer services. I got information from the ambulance and the fire department the week of June 20th of this year. The ambulance people told me that they have 40 to 50 volunteers and 10 to 12 paid staff. In 2021, they had 1,413 calls. That's before all of these developments go in. The fire department told me that they have 76 active volunteers aged 21 to 92 years old. The average age is the late 40s. They said they have 500 to 600 annual calls, but it's hard to get new volunteers because their volunteers are being priced out of local housing. I met with the fire commissioners, and they wrote a letter, which I don't know if you've all seen, but I'm happy to provide that letter to you. Now, I've spoken about the letters, though the next thing on my list is the secret. It got a conditional neg deck, which means, for people who don't know what the secret is, that's the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and a conditional neg deck means that they think it will not have a positive impact on on harming the environment. It will negatively, not have an impact on the environment. It sounds backwards to me, but that's how Megan Mackey explained it. But that was adopted on September 8th of 2022, this conditional neg deck, the condition being that the intersection be widened at Depot Road. The problem I have with that is that the draft was done by Britton Bistrian, who is the newest planning board member. Now, she joined the planning board August 4th.
She's our village planner. She's not on the planning board.
Okay, well, she did the draft for the secret, and she came to the planning board meetings beginning on August 11th, and she was tasked August 25th with the responsibility of writing the draft. She did not attend either public hearing that the planning board had, and she didn't go to any of the meetings where the project was discussed beginning January 27th of 2022. Additionally, she lives in Amagansett. Now, I know her grandmother grew up in Quiog, but on a much different kind of property than this patio gardens would be. She's also an investor and owner at the West Hampton Beach Brewing Company in the Hampton Business District over at Gabreski Airport. In summary, I do have access to the recommendation from the Village Board of Trustees dated October 27th, which was a week ago. And they noted many concerns, the same concerns that they had about the Rogers Avenue project. And I know that came up in front of the Board of Trustees for a special exception. But they were concerned about the safety, health, welfare, comfort, and convenience of the village being possibly adversely affected by the special exception and its location, and the conservation of property values, and the encouragement of appropriate uses of land, the overcrowding possibility of land, and undue concentration of population, especially in this one small area of West Hampton Beach. And the planning board recommended to the Board of Trustees, and I know you all have seen this, but you know, I'm going to read it anyway. They want you to consider the criteria carefully to ensure the maximum density allowed is appropriate for the subject neighborhood, and they recommend that you weigh the potential impact on the neighborhood and community as a whole carefully before you arrive at an appropriate yield determination. Now, I imagine that it's already foregone conclusion that something will be built on that property. I do hope that the same thing doesn't happen that happened in 2008 when Bruce Barnett was about to develop it, and then the economy crashed and he ran out of money and couldn't get it underway. And I would hate for them to clear all the trees off and have big piles of dirt all over the place and not be able to proceed because they won't have buyers with 7% interest rates and recession and inflation and everything else that was going on back in 2008. But if at all you can lower the density, like has happened at the Rogers Avenue project, I and my neighbors would really appreciate it. So thank you for listening to me. Sorry I went on so long, and I hope other people have something to say too.
Thank you, Ann.
So there's a lot there to unpack, but the SEQRA process, as you know, is designed to look at all of those issues, not just at our project, but our project's impacts, other projects that are in the pipeline, and that's in fact what happened here. We did a traffic study. The traffic studies for the other projects that have taken place in the village were also available to the planner to reach their conclusion. And the fact that she may not have been to all the meetings doesn't mean that she could not have reviewed the minutes. She could not have consulted with the outgoing planner, who I know had quite a strong opinion about this entire project, and I'm sure that he shared with her. And she's a professional, and you hired her to give her professional opinion, and that's what she did. And her professional opinion that she recommended to the board, planning board, that the planning board adopted, was that under SEQRA, this project should be awarded a conditional negative declaration. And the condition wasn't really the widening of the roads, because we had already offered to do that. The condition was the elimination of the Riverhead Road access, which we were happy to do. So, you know, the traffic study, just like traffic, is not an instantaneous look at traffic at one particular moment. It's an averaging of traffic over a period of time, and there's all kinds of engineering adjustments and analysis to make the report valid and not just one weekend of counting cars, any more than one Friday afternoon of counting cars on Depot Road is an indication of overall traffic impacts. I mean, I've been on Depot Road when it's been backed up to the train station, and I've been on Depot Road when there was absolutely nobody there. You know, so it's not one point in time, it's overall. And again, the reason why I made this point before is that the correct analysis here is our project's impact on the traffic, not how you're going to solve the bad traffic that we already have. And I think that our studies reached the conclusion that we would have at least a neutral, if not a positive impact on that circumstance. And that was a finding that was accepted, I believe, by the planning board, but certainly by the planning board, the engineering consultant to the